we have one more young Indian with us, part of the Voice of the Young series. Hello, everyone. Good to be back. Today, right now, we have Anmol Singh Karwal. He prefers to be called Anmol, so that's what I'll call him. Over to you, Anmol.
Thank you, Dr. Mathur. It certainly is a pleasure to be here. Just a brief introduction about myself. I'm currently pursuing a master's in economics at Boston University's Department of Economics, where I'm specializing in international finance, macroeconomics, financial economics. Well, before this, for about 2.5, 3 years, I worked at the Economist Group, where I was tracking financial risk, understanding what's going on in the world of finance, and how it's sort of impacting corporate balance sheets in the spectrum of risk. I also have a near and about of experience in investment banking, and before that, I completed my undergraduation again in economics and finance from University of London's international program based in Singapore.
Okay.
That was back in 2019. And I've always been very passionate about economics, financial markets, finance in general. So yeah, look forward to talking.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, perhaps I can discuss about my journey.
Yeah.
How the Economist Group sort of made me more focused about financial economics, and why did I choose Boston University?
Yeah.
And what's going on right now in general.
Yeah.
So, since growing up, as I mentioned, I was always interested in finance, economics, and I was one of those people who used to go onto YouTube and listen to government heads, prime ministers, presidents, their speeches, and I was always very inclined to how this whole world works from an economic standpoint. Thankfully, my parents were always very supportive in terms of helping me out to really understand how things work at a very tender age, and that passion sort of flowed with me when I went for my undergrad at the University of London's international program in Singapore, which was amazing. I got a chance to understand and read more about this intersection of finance and economics, and there I sort of made my mind very clear on what I wanted to pursue. It was nothing but being more closer to financial markets, understanding how the world of finance works from an economics perspective, and try to do a lot of research on that end. That sort of dragged me, or sort of led me to the Economist Group once I graduated, which was perhaps one of the best experience that I've had in the last 10, 12 years. I worked there for about 2.5 years, where I was focused on looking at financial markets in general, mainly the movements of foreign exchange, interest rates, commodity markets, and how those movements appear on corporate balance sheets, what risks do they bring with them, and more importantly, how those risks can be hedged from a corporate point of view.
Yeah. So where were you living at this time when you were working for The Economist?
Well, it was just at the start of COVID, and I was in Delhi at the moment.
Okay.
And it was an interesting experience because my whole team was in London. And I was the only folk who was working virtually in Delhi. But nonetheless, it was very fruitful.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I always wanted was to have a manager who was sort of a mentor in terms of making me understand the nuances of finance in a very practical sense. And I was lucky to have that. My manager, a very experienced personality within this spectrum, and he literally helped me in the beginning and sort of made me independent.
Okay.
So I think that was an amazing experience, gaining mentorship at such an early point of my career. Sort of made my thoughts more structured, made my passion more structured on what I really want to do.
Yeah.
And after, a very fruitful, a great 2.5 years, I decided that this was perhaps the right time for me to pursue my higher education in terms of a master's in economics. And it was literally this time last year when I started, looking out on applications on how do these applications work, how to apply, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And cut to, and now I'm in Boston
Yeah.
pursuing the masters.
Okay. So why economics? I thought you would go for MBA with the finance and all that.
Right. I think one of the main factors that sort of led me not to pursue an MBA was because I always aimed at this intersection of economics and finance.
Yeah.
Like different fields of economics, people study labor, people study education, etc., etc. There's also this field of financial economics, international finance.
Yeah.
Which to be honest, has more to do with economic fundamentals and economic movements than to do with financial.
Right. That's what I thought.
Yeah, and that was very clear to me in terms of what I wanted to study. And once I was, doing the applications, doing all the research almost a year back, I realized that I would definitely pursue a course which is MA in economics or MSc in economics, but has a degree of flexibility for me to sort of choose my passion in terms of the research interest.
Okay.
Which, of course, this course did offer.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so fine. I mean, you're new in Boston, so you can't talk much about it. But what else do you want to talk to us about? What do you want to tell us? What drives you? Where have you been? So what all is going on?
I think I would actually like to talk more about The Economist because
we are all interested in The Economist. So let's.
Right. I receive a lot of messages from people, and to a certain extent, there is also this enigma around The Economist. People read it, but they don't know what happens behind the scenes, how the organization is structured.
Yeah.
So let me sort of share some insights on that.
Yeah.
So founded almost 150 years ago, Economist has been a pioneer in publishing work around economics, politics, international relations, finance, and whatever that really happens all around the world.
Yeah.
It's rather, I won't say it's a small, but a very decent sized team of, I think, over 100 individuals, 150 individuals who particularly work on The Economist that gets published every single Friday.
Yeah.
And it's a very hierarchical sort of approach where there is a chief editor and there are these deputies who sort of handle different divisions. And there is a team, a team that handles different sections of the newsletter that people read. Where do I come? Economist in itself is a broader business. So that book in itself is just one part of the business.
Yeah.
There is Economist Impact. There is Economist Intelligence Unit, which mainly does research work. Then Impact does a lot about events and very bespoke research.
Yeah.
And a couple of more business heads. I was a part of Economist Impact. Yeah. And within that subfield, I did work on Eurofinance.
Okay.
Eurofinance in itself is a treasury research organization which does research on treasury work and organizes events on corporate treasury across the world.
Yeah.
And within that subset of the organization, my work was preliminary to research on corporate treasury. Okay. Now, corporate treasury in itself is a wide but very centric, very focused area of business.
Yeah.
Where experts tend to work on aspects like cash management. Corporates have cash. How do you manage it? Risk management, like I mentioned earlier, foreign exchange, interest rate movements. How do you manage that risk?
Right.
And liquidity management in general.
Yeah.
So all these, all these intersections sort of are nothing but how a person with a background of finance, economics would really handle a business.
Okay.
And that work meant that I need to do a lot of research on this aspect, understand what corporate treasurers are thinking, how are they reacting to global news, what decisions are they taking. So for instance, I'll give an example.
Yeah,
COVID-19 was very interesting because that was a very big shift in terms of working conditions, in terms of general operations management. So one interesting thing that happened during COVID was that in a very short period of time, corporates became really scared about what will happen next. There was a lot of uncertainty about whether a company will be earning a single dollar or not next quarter. And in that scenario, the ideal thing would be to perhaps raise some cash, put it on your balance sheet just to make sure that, there is not a situation where you lose the business or perhaps need to lay off individuals. And that meant that balance sheets were flooded with cash, which was earning nothing.
Yeah.
So what corporates do about it? Do they invest in businesses? Do they invest in assets? That was one issue that we actually looked at. More interestingly, going forward in a world where inflation at that point was transitory,
Yeah.
we try to understand why it is not transitory. And if that's the case, how should corporate risk managers, corporate treasurers be thinking about it?
Yeah.
What actions they should be taking?
Okay.
And as a part of that whole project, we looked at all data of almost 150 top S&P companies, looked at what their balance sheets are, how risk averse they are, or perhaps where are the pockets of risk on their balance sheets, and what mitigation strategies are currently being employed as a part of their structure. We did a lot of quantitative research in terms of trying to estimate things in numbers. So for instance, if inflation goes up to, say, 8% back in 2022, how much that translates to the inflationary impact of the top 10 S&P 500 companies.
Okay.
And how much of that can be hedged using financial engineering?
Okay.
Can they employ derivatives, a certain aspect of finance to lock in that inflationary impact? Or there are any other strategies?
Okay.
If not, what are they thinking? How they should be sort of looking at this dilemma?
Okay, so what's your output if this group? What are you producing?
Right.
You're looking at all this, and then what's your own deliverable and what is the overall output?
Well, so certainly as a publication, the goal is to publish some insights, something that perhaps people aren't aware about. And that's what we did. Every Wednesday, we published a research-based article, a data-based article per se, where we looked at what's going on in markets, looked at the data, and sort of came up with a story on what is going on.
So that's just an article on the website.
Which, of course, gets published on the website.
Right, so it's subscriber-based.
A certain aspect is subscriber-based, but generally a lot of it is free.
Okay.
And apart from that, we did these, newsletters as well, where we sort of published 10, 12 pages of research as a part of document, which perhaps was sponsored by a bank or something, and we would publish that. We also every year did, because being a treasury-focused research organization within The Economist, it's a very niche. There are not many treasurers across the world, so we had access to this niche, and every year we did a survey of these 150, 200 treasurers around the world of companies like Amazon, Apple, etc., etc. And we tried to understand what they are really thinking, what are they planning for the future, which again was published as a report. So it was everything. The whole focus was that whatever we do needs to be published, needs to be it needs to be like a readable content in that way.
That of course, but I'm curious, what's the revenue model?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's very interesting. I'm glad that you asked, because I wanted to share that as well. Right. So, as I mentioned, that it's predominantly free, whatever research that we do. But given the fact that our publication reaches almost 20 to 25,000 people at a time, so that opened us as a big marketing effort.
Okay.
And Eurofinance in general generates majority of its revenue from organizing treasury-focused events.
I see.
So those events generate millions of dollars of revenue. But in order to really,
how do events generate revenue? I'm curious.
so number one, sponsorships.
Okay,
So
all right.
so treasurers, they have banking partners.
Yeah.
Banking partners want to expand their,
Yeah.
treasury base, and therefore they try to sponsor our events. Number two is ticket sales. Almost every year, I think over 1,500 people land up in our events, in one individual event. This September, it's going to be in Barcelona. It's called the Eurofinance International Treasury Management.
Yeah.
It'll again host more than 1,000 people, and
Okay.
many of them have to pay a certain fee to sort
All
of.
right, fine. Okay, fine. So you have a good revenue model, okay? Because what you are saying is pretty expensive stuff. There's a
It
cost
is.
to it. It is a cost, and
It's a,
good.
and that's where sort of our research sort of came up, right? Because
Yeah.
people read what we do, they
Yeah.
sort of got an idea about what will be discussed at the events,
Yeah.
who the companies will be, and that was a great marketing effort in itself, to really put that forward, that there is something happening, and this is what might be discussed, so why don't you come up? Yeah.
And the deadlines are killer for stress or what? I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
people working. I mean, newspapers are also stressful.
Right.
Deadlines are there and they cannot be shifted at all.
Absolutely. I mean, that is something that was very essential. And I think initially I needed support to sort of handle those deadlines. But once I really grasped how the things work, I was able to independently take our weekly newsletter forward.
Yeah.
So every Wednesday, there has to be a research that goes out.
Yeah, it has to
There
be.
can't be.
No.
There can't be Wednesday where we don't publish anything.
Right. It can't happen. Right.
It can't happen, right?
Right.
And that meant that we have to really be like forward thinkers in terms of what we want to publish, what things are we tracking. And by that, I mean, it doesn't mean that we just do any random stuff.
No, you can't, because your
Right.
reputation is there. No.
Exactly. One thing that was very essential, and my editor always told me, is that he is like, Anmol, one thing that you need to keep in mind is that we are producers of news.
Yeah.
And news means what happened last week needs to be represented in our work this week.
Right.
So if we are, say, planning to publish something 3 weeks from now, there is a very high chance that right at the end, we'll have to sort of, just shift it and add something new to it.
Yeah, that's true. That's how newspapers were in the old days. Hold the press, change the headline. Today it's easy on digital, but when they were printing,
Right.
They had to really hold the press. I have to change the headline. All right, so I don't. Okay, good, because you cannot plan, because the thing changes, the world changes on you, and you have to. If you can't miss what happened 2 days ago just because you didn't plan for it. Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
that is very.
So you must have learned how to handle your time very, very carefully.
Certainly. I mean, project management was essentially very important. I think many people do try to learn it.
Yeah.
I feel the best part is to sort of just do it, and you get a hang of it.
Okay.
And that's what we really did. I mean, we used to, have all these spreadsheets where we track what we are doing, what aspects of our research are still uncovered. Say, for instance, like I'll share another example, perhaps will make it more clear. So 2021, last quarter, September, October, December, I mean, that was the time when inflation was very, getting out of control. People were really iffy about it. So if you go back to a publication, you will see a lot of stories around inflation. And that meant a lot of planning.
Yeah.
We know what news is about this.
Yeah.
It will continue to remain about this.
Yes.
But then again, we need to sort of link that to something and publish.
Yeah.
But things changed in 2022 when Russia and Ukraine war happened.
Yeah.
See, we couldn't obviously plan for it, right?
No.
So that meant that suddenly we are in a situation where you have to think, okay, now we obviously no one wants to read about inflation, right?
Yeah.
People want to read about what is the impact of this war on corporate balance sheets.
Right.
What does it mean that when people say, okay, we are exiting our businesses from Russia, what does it actually mean in terms of numbers, in terms of working capital, in terms of
Correct.
capital investment.
Yeah, I understand.
So that meant that we shifted our outlook. I vividly remember, uh, end of March or first week of April, we published this story about automobile companies, which faced a big risk in terms of exiting businesses in Russia, because a lot of their supply chain was in Russia.
Yeah.
So this is how it is, and you sort of go with the flow, but to a certain extent also plan for it.
Yeah, that's practice gives you that handle of ability to. Okay,
Absolutely.
so now, I mean, let me tell you that you might find academia a bit hard. The pace is not like that, and the ideas are not so current, and also I don't know how you will handle the transition back to academia. It's not going to be that straightforward, is it? Or
it's a great question, to be honest, and something that I actually pondered upon in the last month before heading to Boston, because there was this confusion: should I pursue a PhD,
yeah,
or perhaps just go back into the field, or perhaps do something more on the private sector, based on more markets. And this question still remains, right? It's still evolving, and one thing that I realized is that working at the Economist Group, working with my manager, really taught me the fact on how to question things.
Yeah.
And in itself, research is nothing but about questioning, right? You question, why is this? Why is that happening? Why is this not the outcome? What happens if this happens? I mean, that always is sort of the fundamental of research.
Yeah.
And I think that approach is something that I'm taking forward when I have started my classes. So why did Alfred Marshall use a production function to maximize utility? Why did he do this? Why didn't he think that way?
Yeah.
And those fundamentals are something that are consistent across.
Okay.
So even though I am coming from a very fast-paced, very quickly moving environment, I believe I have a pure application of those fundamental learnings that I gained during my time at The Economist to apply it in an academic world. And the best part about, I believe, mostly American universities that I've noticed is that they are very open to conversation.
Yes.
And that means that it's not textbook based per se. Obviously, I would want to read a textbook to understand things better, but when you're in class, it's as if it's an open book in itself.
Yeah.
You can ask anything, you can discuss anything, and that's like a wonderland for a person like.
Good.
Right.
You ended up in the right place then.
I feel so. I hope
it's certainly true. Okay. Anything else you want to add at this point? You seem to be running out of things that you want to say, but maybe I'm wrong. But do you have anything more?
I could perhaps give a couple of 2 cents on my on how to plan for masters for people watching this video.
Yeah, that would be nice. Some tips would be very useful.
Certainly. And I think I would say that for me, I always knew that I'll pursue a master's. I started planning for it early 2020. And when COVID hit, my plans sort of shattered. And I had to unfortunately delay going in for a master's, which I don't regret at all. But I feel the number one aspect of a successful application is to starting early.
Yeah.
Applications, particularly for US colleges, they are vast. I mean, it's as if they are never ending. They require you to write an essay, showcase your research, ask your academic teachers or professional managers to write recommendations. So I mean, it's vast. It takes a lot of time and effort. So the best thing is to start early. And in that aspect, I would say it's better to research in terms of what colleges you want to apply for. And as a part of that research, it is essential that you reach out to people who are currently pursuing that course. Ask them about the course, do a lot of background check, and you'll get you'll get a really good insight of if this is right for me or not.
Yeah.
The second thing is you should have a certain clarity about what you want to pursue in general.
Yeah. All right.
If a person is entering into a purely academic environment and doesn't want to pursue academia, then that's not the right thing for him.
No.
So certainly someone needs to have, so the person needs to have a certain inclination towards, what he wants to do,
Yeah.
has a bit of idea about it.
Yeah.
Not pure clarity, but a bit of idea. The part 3 is perhaps just finish off your GREs or GMATs of the world as early as possible, because they are valid for quite a number of years and they take a lot of time. I think I regret not taking and sitting for those exams when I was in third year of my college or something. I should have done that.
All right.
So yeah, I think, but in the end, I think the best part is talk to people. People are very open to discuss, and it's just a matter of reaching out.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that's very helpful to prospective people, I'm sure. And I'm really glad to hear from you what it's like to work for The Economist, because I also don't know what happens behind the scenes. It's good to know that. And it's a prestigious place to work in anyway. And it opens many doors because they can select globally and they can select anybody, right? So once you have that chap, that makes a difference, right? And that you delivered for quite some time. That's also very very impressive, and it helps you a lot to figure out how to get things done and so on. So what's your future? But I mean, you finished.
That's pretty interesting. Well, as I mentioned, I'm still pondering about the fact whether I should do a PhD or not.
Yeah.
However, to sort of be more, to point out where I see myself, say 5 years or 10 years down the line, I think I'll be in an environment which focuses more on macro financial research. I see myself working, say, either for organizations like World Bank, IMF, or perhaps even financial institutions which have exemplary economic research departments.
Okay. All right.
So that's where I see myself being more research oriented in terms of my work.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sort of working on. Whether I'll PhD or not, that's still.
Yeah. That's so, we don't know what we are going to do, but certainly the little bit of narrowing has taken place. The path is not clear. The goal kind of looks reasonably clear. Right. How exactly you get there, what the luggage you carry is, that's not known, but something is there. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Anmol. I mean, if you have something more to add, I'm happy to take it. But if not, maybe we catch up with you in 1 year to see how you are doing in Boston. And other than that, let's say bye to the viewers, and I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Till then, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.